If I was a power-hungry politician and I wanted to control everything that was said on the internet, and I wanted to create powers so I could silence and censor anybody I wanted, how would I possibly convince the public in a free Western society? How would I convince them to say that's a good idea? I'm a Canadian, my name is Greg, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly how the Trudeau regime is going to try and pull this off in Canada. Everyone is talking about Bill C-10 right now, the internet censorship that's coming to Canada. Hopefully will be resisted. We need to stop Bill C-10. But what not many people are talking about is the upcoming bill that I believe is being tabled this week. Right now it is Monday, May 3rd, early in the morning. That's when I'm making this video. And I want to show you the research that I've done on this upcoming bill, what I predict it's going to be, how it's going to be sold to Canadians, and also just the disgusting things that Guilbeault and the Trudeau Liberals are trying to do to try and sell it to Canadians. And finally, make sure you tune in till the end, because I'll show you who's actually building the legislature for this upcoming bill and just how flagrantly biased they are. It's absolutely disgusting. But we have a lot to get through, so let me hop into it. And first of all, let's just remove all doubt about the real true intentions of this bill. This bill is thinly veiled authoritarianism. They want to install an RCMP of the internet, essentially. So they have the power to police speech online. They will have the power to eventually fine you and possibly jail you if you say the wrong thing. Let's go to this interview here with our pal, Mr. Guilbeault. Let's hear him talking about describing the bill. He's describing this newest hate speech bill. I'm not sure what they're going to call it, but it's the authoritarian bill, essentially. It's the Authoritarian Censorship Bill. This is him describing this is our goal with this new legislature.
And third, there's the work our government has been doing over the past few years to combat online harms. We are now...
What is online harms? What is online harms? The number one reason why we know this is authoritarianism is no one has answered that question. What is an online harm? Okay, let's start with our favorite. Is this an online harm? Is showing this image of Trudeau in blackface an online harm? Who is it harmful to? It's certainly harmful to his reputation. It might be harmful for black people or indigenous people or Saudi Arabians. Are we going to erase part of our heritage? You know, could this be harmful if blackface is brought up in the wrong context? Is that harmful? How about this? Wife-beating guidance by Qatari official Dr. Ahmed Al-Farjabi on Al Jazeera TV. Some women must be subdued by muscles. Women almost unanimously agree that beating is better than letting the wives ruin their families. Wow, what a hot take. Now, this is a hard one. This is a hard one. How is this harmful content? And by the way, I mean, are we going to censor Dr. Ahmed Al-Farjabi? Wouldn't silencing a Sharia expert, wouldn't that be Islamophobic to silence somebody like this? But at the same time, you know, this is sounding kind of sexist, what he's saying. So is this harmful content? How do we regulate this? Here's a Mad TV skit from 2001.
Let's go. Here we go. All right.
How you doing, Robert Miger? Good luck to you.
Darren Krager, thanks a lot.
All right. It's the Miggers versus the Crackers. What a show.
Louis, listen, it's Miger, not Migger, bro.
Hey, cut me a break, bro. I haven't seen my penis in 8 years, all right?
Is that harmful content? And furthermore, if you go into the comments, someone said, "Am I the only black person who found this funny?" I hope not, because this is hilarious. That has over 1,000 likes, that comment. So is that comment harmful? Is this sketch harmful? Harmful to who? How are we going to regulate? Are we going to delete old Mad TV sketches off the internet if we're in Canada? There's no end to this question of what is harmful content. And the number one reason why we know this legislature is thinly veiled authoritarianism is because they can't answer this question of defining what the harmful content is. However, this is what Mr. Guilbeault goes on to say.
Developing legislation to deal with online harms to address hate speech, child sexual exploitation content, terrorism content, content that incites violence, and the non-consensual sharing of intimate images online.
All 5 of those things he listed are already illegal. Hate speech is already illegal. Child is already illegal. Terrorism content, inciting violence, and non-consensual sharing of images. This is all already illegal. It's already illegal already. This is the second reason why we know this is thinly veiled authoritarianism, because the things that they're saying that we're going to stop are already illegal. So what is the purpose of this new legislature? They're saying we're going to stop more of it. We're going to stop more of it. And people are saying, oh, Greg, like, you're crazy. What, we're going to get thrown in jail and fined and all this? Like, that's crazy. Well, there's a reason. This is why I'm saying it's thinly veiled authoritarianism. There's a reason this new legislature is getting grouped in with these things. Terrorism and things that are already illegal. They're going to expand the definition. This is my prediction. They're going to expand the definition of hate speech. They're going to expand this wide blanket of harmful content. And then basically, if you have the wrong political opinion, actually, you're a terrorist. Actually, you're as bad as somebody who distributes child. That's where this is going. This is what I'm predicting. And of course, you have to look out, guys. They're going to dress it up with all this pretty language, all this pretty stuff. And you should not believe it. You should not believe a word they're saying. It's clearly thinly veiled authoritarianism. Like I said, they do not define harmful content. No one can answer this question of what is harmful, what is not harmful, how are we going to regulate the content. So it's just a big fat excuse to censor and silence who they want. It's thinly veiled authoritarianism, so don't fall for it.
We've seen too many examples of public officials retreating from public service due to the hateful online content targeted towards themselves or even their families.
This is another clear tell that this is about authoritarianism, because they're mentioning specifically, oh no, public officials. These are public officials and their families. They feel so unsafe. And then, of course, we have to bring this up. I don't know, you may have heard about this in the summer. Police launch hate crime investigation after man yells obscenities at Catherine McKenna at her office. When I walk downtown Toronto, I'll have homeless drunk people yelling obscenities at me. Okay? This is a public official. Of course people are going to be yelling at her. But no, it's a hate crime to yell at a public official now. And by the way, if you've seen the clip of this man, yeah, he does say the C word. It's a little classless, I will say that. But he does have his stats and his facts with him, and it's like, Miss McKenna, you've misplaced, like, what was it, 20,000 different infrastructure projects of, like, taxpayer money? Like, she did mess up, and someone's getting angry, and now it's a hate crime? And you can imagine if they apply this same logic of a hate crime of some Canadian getting angry at a public official, you can just imagine how they would apply that online. Oh, you're complaining about Justin Trudeau and our safety minister, Bill Blair, lowering the sentences for people who smuggle illegal guns into Canada? Oh, you're complaining about that? Of course I'm complaining about that. Of course that makes me angry, because at the same time they're taking away guns from legal gun owners. You know, it's right here. It's right here in front of us. Why would he mention that? Oh, public officials feel unsafe. And by the way, this is the next thing he's going to say here is the most disgusting part of what they're trying to do here. My original question is, if I was a power-hungry politician trying to control everything on the internet, how the heck would I sell this to people? How the hell would I convince them of it? And the answer is using black people and indigenous people and marginalized groups as pawns. It's not A new tactic by the Liberal Party, but boy, is it their favorite. Listen to this.
Based on a national survey from the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, we know that the vast majority of Canadians are worried about hate speech online and that the government should be doing more to prevent hateful behavior online.
So notice how he stuck those 2 points together. He stuck the 1 point of, Canadian public officials feel really safe online. By the way, we did this Canadian racism poll, and we found that people really don't like racism and really don't like hate speech online. You see how they just kind of snipped those 2 kind of points together? It's disgusting. And this right here is the Canadian Race Relations Foundation Facebook page, and it's really disgusting what they're doing because they're kind of creating like victim porn, where they're glorifying victims of really crappy situations.
Making me feel like I was a trash bin.
You know, and this person's recounting a scenario where someone like throws a cigarette butt at them or something, and it's horrible. That's obviously horrible. It's not a good excuse to now police all speech and content online and protect government officials. It's not a good excuse for that, but the Liberal Party is doing this. They're taking these people's sad stories and saying, okay, now we get to protect ourselves from any criticism online. This is the play. This is the play. I think they want to install the RCMP of the internet so they can silence and censor who they want. Sorry to break it to you folks, but this is the play. This is what they're going for. They don't really care about this poor woman and her experience. They care about glorifying it. They care about fetishizing it and capturing it and using those tears, using those sweet tears so we can get our authoritarian internet. It's gross. It's gross. And this is not the only video like this at all. And you know, I don't like to victimize myself. I don't think it's a good for anybody. I think that you're going to deal with assholes in life, okay? I ran for the People's Party in 2019. I had people turning their back on me. I had volunteers yelled at in the street, like 18-year-old volunteer, like physically intimidated by a guy twice his size. I had someone of Indian descent volunteering for me. He had stuff thrown at him, okay? Why? Because he was associated with the People's Party of Canada. You know, like I didn't make some long video about him crying when he got stuff thrown at him. It was horrible and it's disturbing and it's totally fucked up. Especially when you consider a lot of the misinformation about the People's Party of Canada was spread by our mainstream news. Shout out to Warren Kinsella, by the way. That spineless slug guy. Oh, don't get me started on him. Anyway, they are using people as pawns. They're using people who have been bullied as pawns. And it's really disgusting. Don't fall for it. This is the tactic to try and get authoritarianism into Canada. Don't fall for it. And another reason why I want to emphasize here on, you know, why this is clearly just a power play is nobody is really that concerned with what they're talking about. You talk to these people on the podcast, like you'll talk to Guy Beau, it's this big problem, and I'm not a big guy on, like, you know, touting numbers like just because something is popular, but it is pretty instructive that the Canadian Race Relations Foundation is helping build this infrastructure that is going to create an authoritarian internet in Canada. And they only have like they have less followers than me on Facebook. You know, they have less followers than me on Twitter as well. And I'm not trying to like denigrate this organization, but it's like, they're making it seem like everyone is really passionate about this issue when that's just simply not the case. That is simply not the case. And once again, it's very disgusting that they are using these people and their sad stories. They're using them as pawns to try and install this authoritarian internet, this police state on the internet. And I predict there is going to be a tidal wave of this stuff. I think this victim porn is going to take off. I think there's going to be a lot more coming to try and get this bill passed. And while we're on the topic, oh my God, the smears and the slandering is going to be non-stop. They're going to say everybody, actually, Guilbeault has already said this, everybody who opposes this internet censorship is an extremist, right? And they're also going to say white supremacists. They're going to say the isms, all the this and that. And we can't fall for it. We can't fall for it. Conservatives cannot fall for this. And I wanted to make this video to get ahead of the conversation because I'm predicting this is what we're going to see. And I don't have that much faith in our Conservative Party anymore. So I don't know if they're going to fight this stuff. They might be right on board with stopping racism and dishonestly not telling you that this is what's going to install Chinese-like authoritarianism on our internet. And that's why we have to fight this. And I was doing more research on the Canadian Race Relations Foundations, and the new executive director since this past October is Mohammed Hassan. And for those who don't know, I mean, it's kind of interesting. This is the guy that's helping create this legislature for what is harmful online. And this is the same guy who Fury from Toronto Sun alleges he's the spin doctor behind the Hussein family statement. So the Hussein family statement is actually in regards to the Danforth shooting. And a lot of the narrative around the Danforth shooting was from this letter, which is like he's been struggling with psychosis and depression his entire life. And you know what? This is a tragedy. So like, I don't want to be too inflammatory about the topic. Obviously, it really sucks what happened. What I'm pretty sure is alleged in this article is that this guy, the director of this now Canadian Race Relations Foundation, actually helped the media not connect the dots as hard because, you know, that was kind of the narrative. He was mentally ill, blah, blah, blah. When in reality, and this is an article that came out later, older brother of Toronto mass shooter was facing drug and weapons charges. And of course the narrative is, they're down on their luck or what have you. What's really crazy though is like his brother, or I thought it was his cousin, but they discovered 33 guns and seized 42 kilograms of what was identified as carfentanil. This is like one of the like deadliest substances there is. And of course, you know, all the things can be said about, he was a Muslim and he went to this mosque and they said this stuff at the mosque. I won't get into that. But my point is this guy is, you know, I don't want to say that he's spinning things dishonestly. Like he's kind of, you know, he's spinning stuff to make his fellow Muslim brothers, you know, look not as bad when they go on the Danforth and shoot up a place. You know, I understand that he wants to protect his Muslim brothers. And I was listening to this podcast where he's talking about this anti-hate legislation coming up. I'll play a clip for it in a second. But he doesn't talk about the Danforth shooting, of course. No, he talks about the horrible shooting that happened at a mosque in Montreal. I guess I should bring up, by the way, you know, just to compare the Danforth shooting to the mosque shooting, like, if they found out that the Bissonnette shooter was like connected to like some white supremacy group that had like a whole bunch of guns, like that would be a pretty big story. That would be a massive story. Like it would be fair to call them, you know, here's your white supremacist terrorists. We found them. They shot up this mosque. Like there's the story. But it's interesting how with the Danforth one, even though they found someone related to this guy had a stockpile of guns and carfentanil, like that didn't really hit the news cycle very hard. So I think that's worth bringing up in terms of a comparison. But in this podcast, I'm going to share a clip of talking about this hate speech legislature. Mohammed mentioned the shooting at the mosque, which is horrible. But then he also brought up January 6th. He brought up January 6th in the Capitol riot. The Capitol riot, which I thought was a very interesting kind of like curveball. Like, you're like, the Capitol riot has really turned into this magnet of, like, you know, the bad right-wing people, like these evil right-wing people. And my final point here, which I'm going to kind of delve into, I already started to delve into, is the people building this hate speech legislation are so flagrantly biased that it's kind of baffling. And I'm going to play you a clip from this podcast, which really just sums it up and ties it all together here.
There's all these issues of like, I was just joking. It was actually just done in satire. So I wasn't actually like spreading hate content. So there's definitely a lot of gray area there. So
But I mean, just to go off that for a second, like
Yeah.
one of our board members, Emily Nicolas, who was a huge anti-racism activist, did actually put out a bunch of comments that were sarcastic, and Twitter took her down and locked her profile for 2 weeks. This lady's a journalist, and they locked her thing down. So.
Just to emphasize one of my original points, these are the people making hate speech legislature. They're designing it in Canada with the Heritage Minister. They even agree this stuff is difficult, it's hard, it doesn't make any sense. Why were they censored? Why wasn't this person censored? It's almost like everybody has their own bias, and trying to enforce anything outside of existing hate speech laws would be an absolute shit show. And really what's only going to happen is just going to be enforcing some sort of authoritarianism. You know, who has the power, who gets to decide. You know, it's who has the power, who's going to decide. But anyway, the major point is coming up.
I mean, I have not, like, the algorithms that they've created right now don't work. They're not fair. So I want things to be taken down that could potentially be harmful, especially incitement to violence, anything that has real life threats to it.
Those things are already illegal, Mohammed, Mr. Hashim. I'm sure you know that. But I just want to remind you, those things, incitement to violence, hate speech as defined in our criminal code, already illegal. But let's continue.
Get it taken down. You know, let's deal with this, like, if the threat levels appropriately. But the stuff that is a bit more nuanced, it needs to be taken down for sure. But
that's kind of weird. The stuff that's more nuanced needs to be taken down for sure? Huh? I don't really know what he meant by that, but anyway, guys, I was doing research on this, and like the more you hear them talk about it, the more, back to my original point, what is harmful content? How do we regulate this? It's just a bigger and bigger question mark. Once again, it's thinly veiled authoritarianism. But anyway.
And that's funny to me that they were so quick to take down her like tweet. They didn't do that with Trump, but you know.
So this is the CEO of Abacus Data. This is the executive director of Canadian Race Relations Foundation. And then the host says, Miriam, yeah, your friend got taken down for her tweets. But yeah, with tweets like Trump, they just leave up those tweets. No one corrected her. Okay? No one corrected her. No one said anything. No one said, oh, actually, Miriam, you're mistaken. Donald Trump has been banned from Twitter permanently. He's off of Twitter. He's gone. He's a goner. No, actually, speaking of censorship, and speaking of people who have been silenced and censored by big tech already, no, actually, Miriam, sorry, we're the people who are like going to be designing all this hate speech infrastructure in Canada. We should probably tell you, since we're experts, that Trump was banned off of Twitter. No mention of that. And I feel this is very telling. The CEO of Abacus Data doesn't want to talk about the censored conservative. The executive director of Canadian Race Relations Foundation doesn't want to talk about the censored conservative. And once this legislation is in, they're not going to talk about all the censored conservatives. That's not going to be what they focus on. It's going to be like, no, we're just keeping everybody safe. We're keeping a safe online environment. What do you mean censored conservative? What are you talking about? It's very, very instructive that they did not clarify to the host when talking about this very contentious issue, which they just admitted how contentious it is and how confusing it is. They're not going to clarify? Oh yeah, actually, sorry, Miriam, Trump has been banned from Twitter, actually. And it's funny because I started to do the research. I was like, wait a minute. Why was Trump officially banned? I knew he got banned, but why was he actually banned? And boy, oh boy, is it super relevant. We have permanently suspended the account due to the risk of further incitement of violence. There's that term again, incitement of violence. And this big blog, Twitter blog, is their excuse, their reasoning of why they banned pretty well the most popular politician in existence right now. For those who don't know, he got the most votes of any sitting president in history and still lost. Wow. But he's kind of a popular guy. Due to the ongoing tensions in the United States, an uptick in the global conversation in regards to the people who violently stormed the Capitol on January 6th, these two tweets must be read in the context of broader events in the country and the ways in which the president's statements can be mobilized by different audiences, including to incite violence, as well in the context of the pattern of behavior from this account in recent weeks. After assessing the language in these tweets against our glorification of violence policy, we have determined that these tweets are in violation of the glorification of violence policy, and the user, @RealDonaldTrump, should be immediately permanently suspended from the service. This is disturbing because this is a big tech platform justifying censorship by saying this is the intention of everybody else. This was the intention of Donald Trump. This was the intention of the people receiving Trump's tweet. And it's crazy because it's just kind of assuming bad stuff on everybody who wrote the tweet, everybody who read the tweet. And it's a great example of how if you just expand the definition of hate speech or just expand glorification of violence, you can justify banning pretty well anybody for anything. Here's the reasoning. The second tweet may also serve as encouragement to those potentially considering violent acts that the inauguration would be a safe target as he will not be attending. So this is referring to him saying, hey, I'm not going to be at the inauguration January 20th. Isn't that disturbing that a famous person tweeting out, hey, I'm actually not going to be at this thing? That's like, yeah, that's actually a dog whistle sign to like tell white supremacist terrorists to like attack. Like it's actually like a conspiracy theory in a way. Like it's kind of like they're banning the guy based on their own conspiracy that they've created. It's pretty wild. I love this one. The use of the words American patriots to describe some of his supporters is also being interpreted as support for those committing violent acts at the U.S. Capitol. So even saying the term American patriots is interpreted as supporting violence. The words American patriots now means supporting violence. I mean, I think you get the point. I don't think I need to keep reading here. Because the point is, when you have the glorification of violence policy, if you want to justify banning a political figure, you can. And I'm sorry, if any conservative in Canada doesn't think that this next hate speech bill, whatever it is, this thinly veiled authoritarianism, if they don't think that this is about silencing conservatives or silencing any political dissent to the Trudeau regime, they're stupid. They're stupid, or they're scared, or they're controlled opposition. I don't know what to say. So this is from Global. U.S. at higher risk of domestic terror assaults after Capitol riot. I bring this up because there's been like a line drawn to say that people who were at the Capitol were terrorists. And a lot of people believe that. If you talk to a lot of normies, they will say, yes, there were terrorists there. It's domestic terrorism. Let's talk to one of the terrorists who was at the Capitol riots or Capitol siege.
I feel like my vote didn't count again.
I think the leftists and all those people who are against Trump, President Trump, form a kind of tyranny. And I'm from China. I know the terrible facts about CCP, the evilness. So I'm afraid this land become not free anymore. That's why I'm here to support President Trump.
Beautiful. And there's a lot of other, there's like hundreds of thousands of people there at the Capitol. But, speaking of terrorism, Proud Boys. Because Canada declared the Proud Boys shortly after January 6th a terrorist group. I don't know much at all about the Proud Boys. But I'm curious, how many statues have the Proud Boys torn down? Have they torn down any statues? How many, windows have they smashed? This is rioters and looters destroying Montreal after a BLM protest last year, May 30th. You know, people call BLM terrorist organizations. They call Antifa terrorist organizations. And you can make an argument for that. And you might say, oh, Greg, you're not showing the clips from the Capitol siege. I can show those too. And guess what? You can make an argument for that. You can make an argument for that. You can make an argument for both. Is this terrorism?
Protesters aren't on the tracks.
Is this terrorism?
They are near them. And today,
Well, these people were never called terrorists. That's definitely the act of a terrorist. Okay? But we never called them terrorists. No, it's just the Proud Boys, right? I mean, they haven't stopped any railroads. They haven't disrupted our supply chain. But yeah, they're real bad terrorists. We can't start systematically letting the Liberal Party define what is and isn't okay online, because we know that's what this bill is going to manifest as. And while we're talking about incitements to violence, let's talk about Joanne Roberts. She was the interim Green Party leader. This is one of her famous tweets. Fellow white women, we need to step up. Stop calling the BLM protests looting and rioting. Repeat after me. There is no comfortable way to fight oppression. What's happening across the U.S. and Canada is valid, right, and necessary. Get on board. You know, is that incitement to violence? And of course, Andy No on TikTok. He covers people from Antifa who, you know, Portland Antifa leader Phoebe A. Loomis, 37, was arrested at the May Day riot and charged with a felony. She was quickly released without bail. She was previously convicted for her role at another May Day riot in 2017. She has an Antifa gang tattoo on her chest. She has a lot of combat gear here. That, you know, this sounds like a terrorist. This sounds like could be associated with terrorism. So I think you get the point, okay? You know, things are very politically polarized right now, and we can't allow the Liberal Party to change the definition of hate speech or expand the definition of hate speech and what a terrorist is and what incitement to violence is. Because if we look at examples from the States, it means silencing conservatives. It means bullying conservatives. It means silencing voices to those who resist the Trudeau regime. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, doesn't take a genius to figure this out. We know this is coming. We know that's what it's going to look like. So we shouldn't fall for this really disgusting race baiting that they always do and this like victim porn that they're going to show everybody, because it's just thinly veiled authoritarianism. We need to know that. We need to stand up to that, and we need to stop the censorship. We need to stop the internet censorship, because this is going to be way worse than people think. They're going to try to gently bring it in, and they're going to slowly build a police RCMP force that's going to monitor and surveil everything online, and it's going to look something like the authoritarian Chinese by the time they're done with it. We need to stop this in its tracks, but most importantly, we need to call it out for what it is. Okay? Don't get sucked in to this whole like, oh, well, if I oppose the hate speech bill, then I must be pro-hate speech. Oh, man. Like, this is the oldest trick in the book. They use this every single time. Change the frame, conservatives, and come out strong against it. Because speaking of harmful content, speaking of dismissing people entirely, you know, someone was saying something, oh, rotten language turns off those who might otherwise agree with you. And I responded, let's be real. People are getting tired of the fake niceness that plagues everything politically correct. People still out here passive-aggressively dismissing and dehumanizing entire groups of people, all while acting nice and polite. Oh, but they sounded so sweet and charming. This is what the Liberals always do. But guess what? They are dehumanizing and dismissing regular Canadian people, hardworking Canadian people, and in the worst case, Canadian veterans. We've all seen this clip, but we can't emphasize this enough. This is, I forget his last name, Brock, I believe his first name is. Thank you for your service, Brock. And this is him confronting Trudeau.
So which veteran was it that you were talking about?
Why are we still fighting against certain veterans groups in court? Because they're asking for more than we are able to give right now. They are asking for...
That's fucking harmful content, in my opinion. That's fucking hate speech. And, you know, fuck Trudeau. Okay? Like, I'm not afraid to say that. And no one should be afraid to say that, especially after something like this, where you're going to dismiss and dehumanize someone who not only fought for our country, but this guy actually lost his leg fighting for our country. This man right here, this real man, an actual man with testicles and a backbone, not this like virgin leaner over here. Okay, I'm talking about this man here. We need to stand up for ourselves, and we need to cut through the bullshit. We can't keep listening to this polite niceness. If people haven't realized how political correctness works, let me give you a quick summary. Political correctness is this huge basket of rules that keep on expanding, and all white people are racist and all men are toxic, and if you don't do the right thing, you're going to get in trouble. There are so many rules that can get you in trouble and get you canceled. But here's the thing. The rules are only there to be enforced against certain people. Right back, coming full circle to the beginning. The rules didn't apply to this guy. Why not? Well, because of his politics. Because of whose team he was on. And this expansion of these hate speech laws and this incoming bill is going to be the exact same story. It's only going to apply to certain people. It's only going to be enforced in different ways. And as I clarified, love you, Hashim, but if you're not gonna really care about violence on certain sides of the spectrum, if you're not even gonna clarify how Donald Trump was banned from Twitter, and you don't think that's relevant to the conversation of internet censorship and policing hate speech, and you're the one who's creating this legislation to be applied all across the Canadian internet, we're in big trouble, folks. We need to fight this. We need to fight this bill. And when I say fight, I don't mean inciting violence against people. It kind of sucks that I have to say that to clarify that. I meant fight in a figurative way. I didn't mean it in a literal way. You see how annoying this is? Anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for watching all of this. That's the research I've done. We need to look out for all the slander that's coming this week. There's going to be a lot of slander that I think is coming in these weeks. It's going to say, the alt-right unites against hate speech bill. White supremacists unite against hate speech bill. Oh my God, these horrible people. They're the extremists. Who would want to not save these victims? All that stuff's going to come, and we can't fall for it, and we can't be afraid of it. We need to stand up against authoritarianism. It's thinly veiled authoritarianism where liberals are just using people as pawns, as they always do, using marginalized groups as pawns. Don't fall for it, folks. It's obvious. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share it with people who will find it relevant and interesting. And obviously subscribe and sign the petition that we've started. We're going to update this petition. It's a petition against this new hate speech bill. It's the only petition of its kind. Everyone's petitioning against Bill C-10, and I'm all for that. Fight Bill C-10, absolutely. But this next bill, I'm going to have an update for the petition. Sign it now. Get ahead of the game. Let's be proactive about this, conservatives. Let's be on top of this legislation, and let's fight against it, because this is the issue. This is the issue of our time in Canada, okay? If we don't have freedom of speech online, then it's the beginning of the end, all right? So we need to fight this. Let's keep freedom alive in Canada. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon.